Chapter 9 The Road Trip. I had two speeches to deliver one Saturday, in South Dakota City, separated by 200 miles. The first stop would be Dell Rapids to speak to a Lions convention, then on to Pierre, the state capital, for a Chamber of Commerce event. It would be a long day, but both Marty and Mickey wanted to go with me. As we drove out of our town, Mickey leaned forward from the back seat and asked, "Honey, did you bring a handkerchief?" "I brought three," Marty said, "one for Dell Rapids, one for Pierre, and one for regular use." Marty always cried during my talks. From start to finish, tears would roll down his cheeks. I think he was overwhelmed with the idea that someone was standing in front of hundreds of people talking about his life. He couldn't believe it, even after listening to me talk dozens of times. The first time he came to listen, I caught a glimpse of his face and almost broke down myself. After that, we struck a deal. He could sit off to the side, but not in front of me when I spoke. We were both better off that way. Marty and Mickey had lived in Dell Rapids shortly after they were married. He was excited about the thought of seeing old friends. Not long after arriving at the high school gymnasium, the site of the convention, he spotted a woman named Norma. She and her husband had owned the newspaper when Marty worked there. Norma sat with Marty and Mickey as I gave a 45-minute talk to a crowd of 175 people. I concluded my remarks by introducing Marty. The entire audience stood and gave him a prolonged ovation. Marty waved and smiled. Deep down, he was proud to come back to Dell Rapids and be received in such a fashion. He would never say it, but I knew. A photographer lined us up for a picture to appear in the town newspaper, but Marty wouldn't smile, not even when the photographer asked. He looked at me and said, "I have a stupid smile. One side of my mouth droops." After some prodding, Marty made a half-hearted attempt at smiling. On the road to our next appearance, Marty remarked in passing, "I've never been to Pierre in my life." I couldn't believe it. He had lived in South Dakota for more than 70 years and had never been to the state capital. "Too busy working," he told me. As we came into town, Marty asked, "Can we stop at the World War II Memorial? I'd really like to see it." I decided to go there before checking into the hotel. The South Dakota World War II Memorial rests on a man-made peninsula, jutting out from a small body of water aptly named Capitol Lake. Geese and ducks winter there, as warm artesian waters prevent it from freezing. The lake lies less than 300 feet from the state capitol. At just the right angle, you can see the reflection of that grand building on the water's surface. It's a beautiful place and a perfect spot to honor veterans. Marty walked around the Capitol in silence. They surveyed the life-size bronze statues. Each one represented a different branch of the military. Pausing in front of the statue of a soldier, Marty asked, "Can you take my picture here?" I didn't have to ask why, nor did I ask him to smile for the picture. His solemn face reminded me of the night he told me he had watched so many of his friends die. After a few more minutes, Marty said, "That's enough." We walked back to my car without saying a word to each other. He still didn't want to talk about the war. It was just something he kept deep inside of him. We checked into the hotel and got ready for dinner. The woman in charge of the event told me they expected 400 guests for the banquet. Speaking to that many people usually didn't bother me. On that night, I was nervous. I had never spoken to an audience filled with farmers and ranchers. Would they like the message? Would they think it was too corny? On our way back to the banquet hall, we passed by the coat racks. Dozens of black cowboy hats, all resting upside down, filled the top rows. That sight brought me anxiety to a fever pitch. I was so nervous I couldn't eat. Instead, I walked around until I was finally introduced and then walked onto the stage. The crowd was attentive and engaging. With each passing minute, I felt more comfortable. You could have heard a pin drop in that room when I spoke. They were getting it, and getting Marty. My talk was nearly over when I said Marty had never been to Pierre in his life until today. There was an audible gasp from the audience. "Marty," I asked, "would you stand up?" Before he could get to his feet, all 400 people in the room were on theirs. People couldn't see Marty, so I motioned him to come up on the stage. He walked up the steps, we hugged, and I left him on the stage alone. For 2 full minutes, the audience stood and clapped. Marty lowered his head and cried. It was the greatest moment of my speaking life. Immediately after the master of ceremonies ended the night's activities, a long line of people formed to see Marty. Some wanted to shake his hands, others wanted to give him a hug, 2 people wanted autographs. The next morning, we drove out of Pierre and headed for home. Marty said, "I couldn't get to sleep last night. I was just so excited." I couldn't sleep either.